Welcome to the Cultivology Podcast, where we study the science of growth, the growth of small, niche, and large businesses, and how we scale. Specialty crop production and the new American dream. And in this video, I'm going to explain exactly how I was able to fulfill my dream of owning property, getting my own space, just having a place to live, which was all very far-fetched when I got into specialty crop production because I was an addict. I had literally no money to my name. I had no skills, no degree, and I was not quite sure what I was going to do with my life. Specialty crop production holds a very, very niche and individual perspective when it comes to agriculture. There are a few crops out there that you can actually profit from. A couple of crops out there that really do have good margins, and it's absolutely possible to make a living at the right scale. But what a lot of folks think of when they think of agriculture is these hundreds of acres of sprawling wheat fields and farms that are massive. But that's not the case anymore. Like, the world is changing. Especially commodity agriculture is changing, and it's going to continue to change and just become more and more monopolized. And the margins are extremely small for commodity crop farmers. I think right now where the statistic stands, it's at 6 cents per dollar goes back into the farmer's pocket. That is insane. 6 cents per dollar goes back into the farmer's pocket when it comes to commodity crops. With specialty gourmet mushrooms in particular, that's just what I know, the margins are way, way different than that. I mean, we're buying and selling blocks of ready-to-fruit substrate for $10, and off of that block of substrate, you're yielding anywhere between $20 to $60 of revenue from that block, meaning that you're 100% up, no matter what, when it comes to specialty mushrooms. There's not many other crops that you can do that, and there's not many other, especially plants that go into the ground, that can see that kind of revenue return. So it's really interesting to hear that people just are living with this false narrative that farming is dead and that there's no way to make it, and that there's this, and I personally believe there's this real negative type of poverty mindset when it comes to agriculture. And that's what we're trying to abolish with Farm Launch, with these videos, and with just putting ourselves out there as 10 Mile Mushrooms. We want people to see that there's another way of life. The American dream is not dead, but you have to use the system against the system. That's my number one thing that I can say. You need to utilize grants, loans, whatever it takes from the government in order to say, kind of like, fuck the government. It's just the way it has to happen. I don't know too many folks who are getting into agriculture who have a whole ton of money and who are like, I want to invest in this. All of the people who are stepping into these shoes are people who want a different way of life, are people who are seeing the value of slowing down, of stepping away from these screens, of getting their hands dirty and really making an impact locally in their community. Mushrooms, for me in particular, it's just such a beautiful thing, and I'm so grateful that we're growing crops that are healthy, organic, that have tons of medicinal benefits that have been used as medicine across the world and all continents for millennia. Like, that is freaking awesome to me. And I really, 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 like, am proud of that. So the whole basis of using the government against the government to get what you want. Let's talk a little bit more about that and how it's possible to move from nothing to something, to hopefully your dream property or your dream life or whatever it may be. At the end of the day, this is a profitable crop. If your business is not profitable, there's something wrong in the numbers. If you watch the previous video here, it should be posted before this one. The entire video talks about the mushroom math of growing oyster mushrooms. And if you have the outlets for it, there's no doubt that you should be a profitable company. And if you're not, you're doing something wrong within the systemic marketing and sales of your business. That's just bottom line. So, starting out, it doesn't take much. Literally a couple $100 can get you into specialty crop farming. With mushrooms, your investment is minimal. You need a little bit of a grow room, maybe a grow tent, couple of other things, humidification, all stuff that's laid out in Farm Launch. If you want to check that out, Farm Launch Lite is tagged below. But all of these bits and pieces do not cost much cumulatively. If you want to go hard, you're looking at a couple grand, which is a low barrier for getting into a new business. Now, with that being said, that's assuming that you have a place to grow somewhere where you're not spending $2 or $3 grand a month on rent or anything like that. That's just outrageous to me. We figured out a way to make it work for us to where we're living on the property. We have this building that can be used for agriculture, can be used for everything, and we have a bunch of land all for $1,900 a month. And that's totally doable for you too. It depends where you live. You may not be able to purchase as much land as we have, but to get a plot that's 5 acres to do whatever you want, totally doable. So you can get into it, a couple $100. You're buying ready-to-fruit substrate. You're focusing on the sales and marketing. You're getting into every farmer's market that you can. You're getting into every restaurant you can by using the 4 implementation methods of direct-to-restaurant sales. And you are setting up a CSA that first year and really just getting into every mom-and-pop shop that you can. If the harder you can go focusing on the sales from the beginning, the more and the better off you're going to be ultimately on year 2, year 3, year 4. And I'm only saying this from experience because I totally negated all of this stuff when we started. I was so focused on just growing mushrooms and learning how to be a mycologist in the lab work and growing different strains that I totally forgot that I was actually running a business. I was just like, I'm gonna do the farmer's market. And, I quote unquote regret that now, but it was all part of the learning journey, and part of why I'm making these videos is to hopefully get some other people thinking about some other ways to approach this, because I don't think the way that I approached it was really the best approach by any means. So just trying to help some others here with some, hopefully a little bit of value when it comes to the focus of getting started. So you're attacking those 4 different avenues of revenue, and when it comes to the restaurants, you're using those four key components of taking samples, taking recipes. There's lots of things you can do to really make sure that you get locked in, and make sure that you're on top of their mind as much as possible. You know, just handing somebody a box of mushrooms is great, but let's be real. A lot of people don't know what to do with these mushrooms. They need education, so that's part of our job as the farmer, to educate others on our products, how to use the products properly, and leave no questions in their mind that this is a superior product that deserves the attention of their daily or weekly orders. So once you're locked in, years 2, years 3 are all just about getting that revenue up. Just going as hard as you can, you know, doing all the farmers markets, seeing which markets you want to do permanently. I know for a few years we were doing markets and eventually just realized they didn't fit the lifestyle that we wanted to have. They didn't fit the revenue goals that we had for certain markets and for the areas in which we were at. So we ended up nixing them. But for the first 2 to 4 years, we had 5, 6, 7 markets going on each weekend. And it was a lot. And you know, once we realized that, okay, this isn't maybe the most valuable thing we can be doing with our time, we shifted gears, got into even better markets, and that's what laid the foundation for year 3. So once you hit year 3, you are able to qualify for specialty loans through the USDA that are 0% down up to $600K, and they will literally give you the money to build your farm with like the least amount of freaking work you can imagine getting a loan. It is so freaking easy to qualify for this loan. I mentioned in some other videos, we were only grossing about $60K at markets at the time. You know, we were real small scale, and we still qualified for the full 600,000. And within that, we just got creative. So you qualify for this, and you're going to want to find a pole building to put up, which means get tons of quotes, find out exactly who can put a pole building up the cheapest for you. And you're just going to want to land hunt like a mad dog. And if you spend enough time searching these sites and getting creative, actually looking into the owners, we used OnX Hunt. I'm a big hunter, so I used OnX to find property owner names, to learn, you know, how old these people were, where did they live, did they have any emotional connection to the property that we wanted to purchase. All of those things can lead to you getting information that will eventually allow you to land a deal that is killer. You want to be kind of a little bit of a spy and going with the microscope up to these properties that you're interested in and seeing exactly what the deal is. Don't just say, oh, it's this number, I can't afford it, because that was my initial reaction when we found our property, and we just ended up going so hard at putting offers in and negotiating that we ended up getting the property for way less than we had thought we ever could. And it's just, you need to bring all of these pieces together and lace them together, and eventually you can have a place where you're living at, where you're working at, where you can grow and use the land for more things, you know. And it takes sometimes just doing more, depending on where you're at. It will take more than maybe just doing farmers markets. You're going to have to try to implement these CSAs. You're going to want to implement, you know, direct to retail stuff. You're going to want to implement online sales. All of these things are necessary until you find your groove and find where you're actually the most profitable and where you want to spend your time. You know, and don't be afraid of doing other, you know, in alignment types of things, but don't go off and just create whole new brands. You know, if you're doing tinctures or dried mushrooms, that's great and fine for the market, but I've said this before, just don't go focusing all of your eggs into that basket, because without a real financial backing, first off, if you're going to go that route, you're going to lose your ability to qualify for this loan. You have to be physically growing mushrooms. You have to be physically doing some sort of agricultural work. So it's really important that you stay growing mushrooms, especially if you want to qualify for this loan and live out this little dream. So after year 3, we qualified, and we just got to work looking for... I was actually in touch with the loan officer at year 2.5 saying, hey, the day I can qualify for this loan, I'm ready to go through with it. So we had the paperwork, everything set up already, and we were already in negotiations with the property, and we ended up getting the property, and nothing happened for like a year. We bought the property, and like by the time the folks could come out and actually put the building up, do all of this other stuff, driveways, electrical, all the whole 9 that you have to do when building a property from scratch, it took some time. So don't be afraid to get in there and say, hey, I'm looking to qualify for this loan. This is my ultimate goal. This is where I want to be. And you'll be way ahead of the game, because there's no reason and nothing that says that you have to wait until exactly year 3 to get started on doing this stuff. And honestly, for the loan officers, for the people you'll be working with, it shows some sort of some aptitude towards getting ahead when you're kind of like already on the ball without any benefit at that point. People love to see that, especially in business. People love to see you doing something without getting any return for it. And it's a real special thing when people believe in you, because at that point they're believing in you. They're not just like, they're not putting their money down on you, but they believe that you can do it. And by the time you get to the point where you're actually able to say, yes, I can do it, I am doing it, they're like all in, and they will help you way more than they would have if you just showed up at year 3 saying, hey, I want to do this. So think ahead, prepare ahead. It's a beautiful, beautiful way to hack the system. We have a lot more videos, a lot more information on this, so use the government to kind of get away from the government. That's the motto to my life, and we're very fortunate that it worked out for us, and we're here to, give advice and hopefully lead some others in this direction, because it's been an absolute blessing for us to be able to just acquire these things when I was really sure that I wasn't going to... First off, wasn't even sure I was going to be alive this long, and then second off, wasn't even sure that I would ever be anything or have anything. Not saying I am anything, but just, we're raised in a way in which it's like, so in order to have success, you have to do these things, yada yada. But none of that's true, so fuck that. You don't have to do shit. You have to do what makes you happy, and if that's buying 1,000 acres and farming, that's great. If it's growing a small mushroom farm and being able to purchase your 5 acres and start your homestead, that's great too. There's many ways to quote unquote skin a cat, and there's something out there for everyone. So just work these tips into your life, and try to use some of this information to grow much more, man. Have a great day, guys.